Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech before a crowd of more than 250,000 people? Learn how MLK ended racial segregation on public buses in Alabama by supporting Rosa Parks, a black woman who refused to give up her seat on a bus.
Okay, so let's get into it. Today we're doing a deep dive into what we're calling the architecture of nonviolent equality. We're looking at the life, the philosophy, and the incredible legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but we're focusing really on how he built his approach.
That's the key, isn't it? The how. Our mission today is, I think, very analytical. We're trying to extract the core ideas of his philosophy.
Right.
You know, the nonviolence that was so deeply rooted in his Christian principles. And then we chart the achievements, the specific moments from the sources. We want an overview that doesn't just, admire him, but really tries to understand the machine he built.
Mechanics of it. And for most people, the starting point is, of course, the federal holiday, third Monday in January. It's there to commemorate this Baptist minister, this champion for equality, who just became this huge force from the mid-50s until 1968.
He was a force, absolutely. But it's how he channeled that force that made all the difference.
Right. It was powerful precisely because it was peaceful.
And it was all deeply connected to his own personal history and his education.
So let's start right there with those formative roots. He was born January 15th, 1929 in Georgia. And he grew up in this incredibly strong Christian family. His mother was a school teacher, and his father and his grandfather were both prominent Baptist ministers. So you have this legacy of faith, of public speaking, of scholarship right from the very beginning.
And he didn't just inherit it. He really leaned into it. I mean, his academic achievements alone are pretty remarkable.
They really are.
He earned 2 bachelor's degrees, one in sociology and the other in divinity or religious studies. And then he went on to get a doctorate in systematic theology.
That combination is just fascinating to me. Sociology and divinity. What kind of, practical advantage did that give him when he had to go out and build a mass social movement?
Oh, it's the perfect blend. I mean, it's almost like he was preparing for it his whole life. Sociology gave him the tools, the language to analyze systemic injustice.
The facts on the ground.
The facts, the data, the scale of the oppression. But divinity and theology, that gave him the moral language, the spiritual core, to motivate people who were suffering under that oppression.
So he could speak to both the head and the heart.
Perfectly. He could talk about the facts of the street and the demands of the soul in the same breath. It wasn't just a calling, it was an incredibly rigorous intellectual preparation for leadership.
And while all this is happening, this academic journey, he's also building this really powerful personal partnership. In 1953, he marries Coretta Scott,
who was an aspiring singer, a music student in her own right, a very accomplished person.
Absolutely. And they go on to have 4 children, Yolanda, Martin Luther King III, Dexter Scott, and Bernice. And that image of a stable, educated, faithful family, that became a really important symbol for the whole movement.
It did. It provided this moral grounding. So if you follow that thread, from his family through his education, you land squarely on his core philosophy. Nonviolence. His whole belief system was about pursuing freedom, peace, equality.
Yeah.
But the method was always nonviolent protest. And it was explicitly rooted in Christian principles of love and acceptance.
Specifically agape love, right.
Specifically agape, that unconditional love.
But let's be honest for a second. Some people might hear that and think it sounds a little naive,
Yeah.
Pitting love and acceptance against systemic oppression, against police dogs and fire hoses. How did he make love a practical strategy?
And that is the essential question. The genius of King's strategy, the architecture we're talking about, is that nonviolence wasn't just a moral high road. It was a superior political strategy.
Okay.
By refusing to meet violence with violence, the movement basically flips the script. It shifts the entire moral burden onto the oppressor.
It exposes their brutality.
Exactly. It exposes the brutality of the system for everyone to see, and it turns that violence against the aggressor, in the court of public opinion. The person resisting maintains the moral high ground, and they can endure.
That idea of endurance is key. And it leads us straight to one of his biggest influences, which came from halfway around the world.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian civil rights leader. He really provided a global blueprint, didn't he, for how peaceful mass resistance could actually work against a powerful system.
He did. King often talked about Gandhi's concept of satyagraha.
Truth force.
Truth force, yeah. And this connects directly back to King's own analysis of how real change happens. Think about that quote of his. Peace cannot be kept by force. It can only be achieved by understanding.
Right. Force can give you temporary order, but it can't give you real peace.
Never. Only understanding can do that.
And that idea is, I think, deepened in what might be his most famous quote, the one that is just the bedrock of his whole strategy. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that.
Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It's so simple but so profound. The goal isn't just to win. The goal is transformation.
And if you link that back to Gandhi, you find this really incredible shared perspective on power itself. Gandhi had that great line, "The day the power of love overrules the love of power, the world will know peace."
Yes. Both of them understood that the goal wasn't just to grab power for their side. It was to fundamentally change what power even means.
So he's built this incredible, philosophical foundation. The question then becomes, how do you put that into action? How do you get thousands of people to adopt this very demanding philosophy?
And that brings us to the moment that really put him on the national stage, the 1955 Montgomery Bus Boycott in Alabama.
This is where the theory hits the road.
Literally. He steps up to support Rosa Parks after she's arrested for refusing to give up her seat. And in that moment, he goes from being a local minister to a national voice for civil resistance.
And the sheer scale of it, the endurance, still boggles my mind. The boycott lasted 381 days.
381 days. Just think about that. The logistics, the commitment, keeping thousands of people off the buses for more than a year.
People walking for miles, organizing carpools, facing harassment.
It was an incredible act of sustained collective sacrifice. And it proved that this philosophy of love and acceptance, it wasn't passive. It was a source of unbelievable strength.
Yeah.
And it worked.
It did. It ended segregation on public buses in Alabama through a Supreme Court ruling, a perfect demonstration of nonviolent economic power.
And that success really sets the stage for the moment that I think cements his place in history forever.
The I Have a Dream speech.
The I Have a Dream speech. August 28, 1963 at the Lincoln Memorial. Over 250,000 people there. The symbolic weight of that moment is it's immense.
It really is a moral declaration that defined a whole generation.
And that visibility, that power, it immediately translates into global recognition. Just a year later, 1964, he's awarded the Nobel Peace Prize.
And he was the youngest person ever to receive it at that time, which is just an amazing detail.
It is. And that award basically said to the world, this isn't just an American issue. This is a fundamental fight for human rights, and his method is the right one.
But of course, as his success grew, so did the danger. Let's turn to that final chapter. By 1968, he's focusing more on economic injustice.
The sanitation workers' strike in Memphis.
Exactly. And it's there, on April 3rd, 1968, he gives his last great speech, "I've been to the mountaintop." It's an unbelievably haunting speech to listen to now.
It really is. It feels like a prophetic farewell. He says, I've seen the promised land.
And then the very next day.
The very next day, April 4th, 1968. The architect of nonviolence is silenced by an act of ultimate violence. He was assassinated in Memphis by James Earl Ray.
At the Lorraine Motel.
At the Lorraine Motel, which is now, very fittingly, the site of the National Civil Rights Museum. It preserves that memory and the immense cost of the struggle.
The reaction at the time was just one of deep, widespread shock. I mean, it cut across all kinds of institutional lines. Our sources point to the response from President Hugh B. Brown,
a high-ranking official in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right. And he's speaking at their general conference on April 5th, the day after the assassination. And he expresses this deep sorrow and shock and acknowledges that King had dedicated his life to his people. That immediate response shows you how monumental the loss felt to everyone.
It does. And in the middle of all that grief, there's this poignant little cultural detail that connects back to the spiritual heart of the man himself.
His favorite song.
His favorite song was "Take My Hand, Precious Lord." And it was sung at his funeral by his friend, the amazing gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson. That music was really the soul of the movement.
And his legacy has only grown. Posthumously, he received the Congressional Gold Medal, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. But I think the most visible tribute is on our streets.
More than 950 streets in the U.S. are named after him.
Just incredible.
Now, there's a fascinating connection we need to make here from the source material. It suggests that King's approach to equality and fair treatment actually harmonizes with the teachings of the prophet Joseph Smith.
Okay, how so?
The idea that you should advance true principles through persuasion, not through coercion or force.
That's a really powerful link. The common ground there, even though the contexts are so different, is this absolute rejection of compulsion. You can't force someone to believe something.
Exactly. Because if you force change, it's not real.
Right.
It's not durable. Joseph Smith had a direct quote on this. He said, "I will not seek to compel any man to believe as I do, only by the force of reasoning. For truth will cut its own way."
Truth will cut its own way. That sounds so much like King's belief in understanding over force. The idea that truth, if presented clearly, is its own argument.
It is. It has to be voluntary.
And this idea of equality and inclusion, advance without compulsion, it also shows up in some major institutional changes within that same faith tradition.
Right. The sources point to the change announced by President Spencer W. Kimball on September 30th, 1978. It's known as Official Declaration 2.
And for context, this declaration extended the priesthood and temple blessings to all worthy men, regardless of race, which ended a previous restriction.
It's a powerful example of how a move toward greater equality has to align with that foundational principle of non-coercion. And the scripture cited in the sources reinforces that universality. It says, "He denieth none that come unto him, black and white, bond and free, male and female, and all are alike unto God, both Jew and Gentile."
All are alike unto God. So what we're seeing is this architecture built on absolute equality, non-coercion, and the force of reason.
To kind of wrap up this deep dive, that's really what it is. We've seen how Dr. King's movement was fueled by this combination of faith, brilliant strategy, and a commitment to nonviolence that was inspired by global figures like Gandhi. He changed America not through aggression, but through understanding and the persistent, relentless force of love and reason.
And that leaves us with this really profound contrast to think about. The peaceful engine of this movement was stopped by an act of absolute force and assassination. And yet, the nonviolent legacy, the ideas, they endured and they completely reshaped the country.
So the question for you listening is, what does it mean when a great leader argues that truth should only be advanced by the force of reasoning, not compulsion? That principle is the silent, essential engine running underneath all of King's greatest achievements.
And we'd really encourage you to reflect on that, the power that's inherent in expressing ideas peacefully. And maybe take a quiet moment and go listen to Mahalia Jackson's version of Precious Lord, Take My Hand. That song, I think, perfectly captures the soul of this entire movement.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.